Recording in progress. You can also hear it when I say when I
Yeah,
press it.
yeah,
The
I heard it.
recording in progress. Sound
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Hmm. So you were mentioning that that you brought up this theme that we could talk about today of the parent-child dynamic.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I always wonder the role of the parent. I mean, we already discussed a few things about parenting and parenting young tennis players, but it was interesting because last time when you were at our practice, that we have one girl there, and the example was like she was very motivated, and she was very like fighting when she was younger, but then now she's like 15, 16, and she somehow lost the maybe the love for the game, or she doesn't want to go that much to the tournaments,
Mhm.
and and I was wondering, what is the dynamic in the family, or how does it work that even though the player is improving, even though she's playing very good, and she, I guess she has the potential to go pro and to play really, I mean, well, she's losing the interest.
Mhm.
And that was the, I mean, that's the question, or I would like to talk about the patterns what are in created in the families, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's, it's a I think it's a difficult topic, right? Because there's so many factors and so much variety in the parents and the different styles, and even within this family, you can have, as you know, you have two sons, and like even each child is different, and depends. It's a big difference if it's the first child or the middle child or the youngest child, or and the parents change also as they have, the first child, middle child, youngest child. They can change their parenting styles and how they approach the raising of the kids. So it's a big topic, right? Because it's something that there's not like a I don't think there's like a clear cut uh
Mm.
like answer. But yeah, let's explore it maybe just a bit. Let's see where we get with the exploration. I think maybe a good point, like good place to start would be, from my point of view, is just realizing, as I talked about also in the past, that first the child is, those bigger categories. That first we're human, then we're male or female, then we're, depends how old or young we are, and then there's the that we're athletes, and then we're tennis players. So I think first we have to approach it from this bigger category, because looking at it just through, parents of like a tennis player, it's too narrow, right? Because and also I don't think it's accurate, right? Because the parent plays more the role on the in the child's life of the broader picture. It's not just for tennis. It's the parents there when the child goes to school, when, since they're growing up, since they have, issue problems or not problems with friends, and socializing and all, like in throughout their whole life. So the parent plays such a huge role, right? The tennis coach, like if you're a tennis coach, you only see the child like a couple of hours in the practice, and then maybe more if you go to tournaments, but the parent's there constantly. And especially the parent was there in the crucial developing stages, right? In the childhood, even before the kids start playing tennis. So kind of as a coach, you're already getting a product of the parenting when you're even starting with the player. Um, so it's a huge role, and definitely, and then there's is stuff like, I think there's also things like genetics and that play a role. definitely, and not just genetics in terms of athletic ability, but also, cognition and temperament and all these things. So I think that's something that's kind of fun for a coach. Is kind of an I think that's where being a good coach also means that you can kind of take any product, any of the parenting, any child, and kind of realize what the temperament is, and kind of help the kid shape their game that aligns with their style, with their temperament. I think as a coach, that's your kind of if I would be talking to coaches, because as a coach, you definitely have an influence on the child, a big influence you can have, especially in those more teenage years when the children are more kind of separating more out from the parents and becoming more independent and are looking for some more like a mentor or some other adult figure to look up to and to kind of help them to figure out themselves out. So in the adolescent years, I think the coach can play a more major role in terms of shaping the kid. Um, but now the question will be, okay, like if we're talking to coaches, like what role can a coach play and what role does the parent play when it comes to tennis? I think maybe a good way to look at it is that a coach is kind of a supplementary role, like a complementary role would be nice, because if you think of like you always want to strive for balance. And then, so let's say if a parent is pushing too much in one direction, or the temperament of the child is so much in one direction, for example, I don't know, the kid is I don't know, it's difficult, right? Because even I wanted to say that the kid is too responsible, but for example, yeah, if we take a kid is too responsible, but it's difficult, right? Because the kid can be too responsible because the parents want the kids to be so responsible.
Mhm.
And that was the culture of the family that was created, the kind of perfectionistic, maybe very critical, etc. But at the same time, the kid can be very responsible also, because the parents are very irresponsible and
Mm.
parents are like too
Mhm.
relaxed. So the kid had to kind of balance, is already balancing out the family system by being too responsible because the home is too chaotic, for example.
Right.
Um, so it's kind of tough to say, right? What then, as a coach, do you compliment? Like, do you take the too responsible kid and you become very relaxed, like very loose, or do you become kind of more strict or disciplined? And or a lot of times it's both, right? A lot of times, sometimes the kid needs actually both, in a sense. What I mean is that maybe needs like a good boundaries where the good boundaries actually provide the kind of the protection and the safety for them to be able to relax more. And this is just one example of like millions
Mhm.
of different variations, right? So it's difficult to say. So maybe I'm thinking now it would be better if we do like a specific example. I think that would be better. Maybe you can talk more about the girl like that you talked about and
Yeah.
in question, and kind of just like we don't have to use any names or anything. Just what's the dynamic there? What do you see? And
Right. Even yeah, we can talk about this girl. Maybe we can talk about I mean my
yeah.
example, or you know our family, or how it goes, and what comes with it. But with this girl, what I have in mind, and yeah, and you remember, I mean, she was like I remember you told me that it probably comes from her mother, because she was like she wanted to please her mother. That's why she was fighting, but it was so stressful that somehow it was too much for her, and now she put it to the other side,
Mm.
and she's not trying at all, almost, or she doesn't care.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I remember, yeah, we talked about that she doesn't want to go to tournaments, right?
yeah, yeah.
This is the one, yeah. So this is just for the listeners. So yeah, I remember now, this is the girl who you're telling me is very good in terms of tennis, very good potential, great ability. She plays well, but she, for some reason, doesn't want to compete. She doesn't want to actually travel to tournaments, and seems like she doesn't really care too much about
Yeah.
competing. And I remember you were telling me about that. And I remember I met the girl briefly for a little bit. And to me, and she's how old she's 15, right?
She's 15, yeah, this year 16.
Yeah, 15, 16. She's been playing since like childhood, right? 7, 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even earlier, maybe. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, probably.
I remember, yeah, I remember when I met her, I remember telling her and the mother also, like when we were there, that, maybe she just needs to rest a little bit because if she was playing since she was 5, 6 years old, and if she was actually so much under pressure, because I remember I asked her, the girl, right, that if she was like in the past, if she was really like trying hard and fighting and working hard, and she was like, yes, like you know. So I remember I said to her, like, maybe you just need a break, because if you've been really, it's been really stressful for you since you were like 6 years old, and now you're almost 60, and it's like 10 years of
Mm.
actually stress. So maybe at this point you're 15, 16, and you're becoming a bit more independent, and suddenly the independence is creating this space for the girl to realize, okay, maybe I can just say no. Maybe I can
Yeah.
just actually have a break and don't have to stress by going to tournaments. Which, if you think about it, is kind of upside down, right? Because when we look at tennis development, like that's when actually 15, 16 is when you would want to actually start competing more.
Mm.
Um, and we see that a lot, right? When we see that, like, where the parents get super excited and that, like, at the beginning, and like, let's work hard and all this. And then by the time the child is 15, 16, when it's actually the time to start competing, they're already like burned out.
Yeah.
So I think that's, I would say, going back to the broad picture, like what's the role of the parent? I think number one is to create the environment to teach the child to play. Like it's just a game. Up until it becomes more than the game, but the more than the game is actually when you're an adolescent, when you're a young adult, because responsibility is there for adults, not for kids. I think that's one of the main points, is that, which I can say generally, doesn't matter what family it is that kids, or rather I should say, yes, there can be responsibility put on kids, but that's the responsibility that is scaled to their level of development. So they can only take responsibility for what they can actually do. And winning and losing in tennis actually is not one of them. It's like you don't choose, because you can do your best and still lose, right?
Yeah.
So if there's too much emphasis and stress put on winning or losing, then it's not the right responsibility. I
Yeah.
mean, the topic of responsibility for me, it's I love this saying that the definition of responsibility, that there's like an equation which says that responsibility equals willingness plus ability. This means that to have responsibility, to take responsibility for something, you need to have both of those. You need to have the ability to do it and the willingness to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't have one or the other, you can't have, you can't actually have responsibility, right? Because let's imagine this, like I give you, like if I give you a task, right, and I tell you, like, I need you to whatever, do 30 push-ups. You might have the ability to do it, but you might not have the willingness to do it. So then even if you do it, just because you have the ability, you're not gonna, it's not gonna be yours. You're not gonna do it because you chose to do it. You're not gonna actually take responsibility for it. You're only gonna do it because I'm forcing you to.
Yeah.
Or on the other hand, if I tell you to, I don't know, build like a house or something, you might have the willingness to do it, but you don't have the ability. So
Mm.
again, it's a foolish thing to start, like, to actually take responsibility, because then you might have the willingness and you start and you fail or something, and then you might feel, terrible because you failed, but actually you shouldn't feel terrible because it shouldn't have been your responsibility in the first place because you didn't have the ability to do it. When it comes to the topic of responsibility and parenting and parents giving responsibility to kids, I think there needs to be this analysis of like, okay, how much responsibility and for what can we give the kids that they can have the willingness and ability to do it. And when it comes to kids, especially little kids, and especially like in sports, at the end of the day, it's are you giving your best effort?
Right.
Like until I don't know what age I would say. It's different for probably each kid is a bit different. Like where would be the point where it goes beyond effort, where it then becomes also about like a plan, like a strategy. Like we pick out a plan for you, like a one goal I want you to do in this match, and like you have a responsibility to do this. Like for example, play high over the net
Yeah.
for like a little kid, and for like a older child, like a younger player, it becomes more complex, the strategy or the tactic, right? But so you're giving them more complex responsibility, but always the responsibility is based on the willingness and ability. And the little kid can be willing and able to do only what like to put best effort, like do your best.
Mm.
Because that they can get behind. They can be willing to, and they might not always be willing to do that, but they're always able to do that. And the willingness, I would say, comes from also like education, right? When you educate someone why that's important or why that's good for them, then the willingness also increases like their willingness to do it, to take that responsibility because they understand why it actually makes sense to them, right? Not just to the parent. So I think going back to the girl that we're talking about, she might feel overly responsible going to the tournaments, for example. Or she felt so responsible for 10 years that now she wants to be irresponsible. Now she's 15, 16, and she doesn't want any more of that pressure that she experienced. And the worst part is when we associate negative connotation, negative emotion to the responsibility because the unhealthy responsibility was given to us as we're a kid. For example, yeah, you give the kid the responsibility to win, or the kid feels the responsibility to win. And that's not a healthy responsibility. Over time, they develop this apprehension, this resistance to responsibility in general. And then suddenly, I don't want to take any like responsibility means pain, basically.
Yeah.
And then they get to the point where, like I said, now they're 15, 16, or whatever it is, and they get to this point of like, like I just want to be irresponsible. I don't actually want responsibility because it's just pain. And I'm old enough to be able to say no. And the parents like can't force me anymore so much. So I'm just not gonna go to the tournament or, so that could be one possibility with her, for example, that
Yeah.
there's pressure. And I remember we discussed what was the other factor? We discussed another factor, right? With her.
Um,
I think it was the socialization, right? I think it was
yeah,
the
probably. Yeah.
yeah.
Like you said, you would ask her what she would rather do on the weekend,
Yeah.
and somehow like trying to match that need also in the tournament somehow.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about how, yeah, I would ask her, okay, if you don't want to go to a tournament on the weekend, what would you rather do? What do you rather
Mm.
want to do? And she maybe will say, I want to hang out with friends, and
Yeah.
and I would probably ask her, okay, do you not have friends at the tournaments? And then we will see, like maybe, and it's clear to see sometimes. Maybe she would even say yes, but sometimes, she might say yes, but clearly you will see that she doesn't mean it, or maybe it's not true. Or maybe the friends there at home are just better friends or she feels closer to. Um, and it goes back to to the topic of what we talked about, I think last time about this community and about how it's so important for us as again going back to that first, we're human and we're social animals. So if you don't develop like a strong community in the tournaments, then and you don't have friends that are there that you go with, and you always just only go with your parent or your coach,
Yeah,
then as a kid, again, as a small kid, it's you do that because you're basically dependent on the parent. It's like because not gonna you're not gonna go by yourself out like with friends nowadays, so you kind of have to. But again comes the teenage years, and suddenly you have a choice because suddenly you can be by yourself outside without a parent, or so then maybe you realize like I'd rather just stay home and go to the mall and hang out with some friends than go with my parent to the tournaments, and especially if I don't have any friends at the tournament. So, so I think one big role of a parent, which comes out of that, is also okay if you want to support your child, like if they love the game of tennis and you want to support them in doing that, like one of your I think jobs or role is to actually also socialize, to become friends with the other parents, and
exactly.
to make sure that your kid makes friends. Like you put them in the environment where they are able to make friends with the other players and the other kids, and which they will see and they will grow up with, seeing at the tournaments. Um, you make sure like you find what we talked about last time, you have a good club where there is a lot of play for the children, and not just training, but also time outside of the training where they can play football or other sports or whatever
Exactly.
it is. They can hang out, and create those connections. And it becomes much more about that lifestyle, like we talked about the other
Yeah.
day, that it's not just about the winning and the tennis and the training and tournament, but it's also about seeing your friends at the tournament. And I think it becomes much more enjoyable for the parent also, right?
Yeah.
When the parent can actually like become, you know, friends with the other parents and can see each other at tournaments and everything, right? So it's and all of that I think takes a lot of pressure also of the kid and of the parent, because suddenly it's a nice weekend we're doing together where I get to
Mm.
see my friends as a parent and the kid gets to see their friends, and tennis is part of that experience. It's not just all about
Yeah.
this and then winning or losing and then just putting all the pressure on, if you win it was a great weekend, and if you lose then it was a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, and I also feel it. Like I today I heard an interview. It was probably an old one, just 5 minutes, where Bob and Mike Bryan's father talked
Mm.
about how they grew up and how he build a community around the kids and how early they started to play and how good they were because they already, when they were 6, they were in tournament up to 10 years old, and he also like took them to the college matches, and he also took their friends, so they hang out all together and they enjoyed it and they have great memories with it and everything. So how important is all of the connections there, and the lifestyle around tennis. Yeah, how that helps to enjoy.
And I think it goes beyond, like again, beyond tennis, where we live, like we in the Western world, right? We live in such an individualistic
Mm,
culture, which like from which is actually not our nature, right? Like it was
yeah,
not many hundred years ago that we still lived like in small villages and small like environments where everybody knew each other and kids were playing like even you're telling me even in like we don't even have to go like 100 years ago, even like
exactly.
when you were young, like you were playing on the street with other kids. So I think that's something that's a problem that goes beyond tennis, where we're like a lot of people were so isolated, where exactly the child. kind of is very structured, the time for the child, where you go to school and then you have the tennis and then you maybe have another extracurricular activity and you go home and then you repeat, it's like very um and there's not a lot of I heard the it was a beautiful term I heard the other day. I think it was called like a free range kids. It's like what they use for like free range chickens, like the chickens,
Mm,
they're able to
mm.
like they're healthier because they're able to like have the on the pasture. So it's like the free range kids is exactly the kids that are able to just run around on the street and and are kind of more healthy that way.
Yeah.
And
I'm,
yeah.
I'm looking for because the book I downloaded, I was listening half of the book already, and the name of the book is The Anxious Generation,
Hmm.
and it's about the Generation Z. The kids, they already grew up with the mobile or
Mhm.
computer or gaming console in their hands, and like how it changes everything. And the author, one of the great um, thought from the book, which I remembered, is like like you said, uh, the kids are spending much less time outside and much more time inside with the mobile. And he said for the parents that we should be or we become overprotected outside and underprotected inside. That it should be the other way around. We should be more restrictive of the use of the phone, and also because I mean every little child can watch all of the porn sites and all of the I mean
Hmm.
aggression on the mobile, but the parents, they are worrying that something will happen to him, somebody would kidnap him outside,
Yeah.
and then we are overprotecting there. So it should be other way around, and that would happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think now in 21st century nowadays, there's much more dangers for the child on the internet than is on the in the playground or in the
Exactly.
outside world. So that's why I love this term free range kids, where you just let them kind of
Mhm.
wander. And I think also when we come to tennis again, it's not just for the socialization, the emotions and all this, but also just physically. Because if
Exactly.
if the kid's movement, even for like an athlete, because nowadays we think, okay, like the kid plays sports, so it's like fine, so they're healthy. But if you think about it, the sport, what is it? It's like 2 hours of tennis, let's say, an hour and a half in the afternoon. So let's say, so if you think about it, the kid is sitting for 8 hours at school, then they have hour and a half of tennis, and then sitting again at home. So they have hour and a half of movement. And also it's a very specialized movement. So actually you're not developing overall athletic ability, which again, we don't even have to talk about just overall health, but even as it comes to the results in tennis, you're going to be a much worse tennis player if you're not developed all around physically.
Exactly.
Because again, going back to my metaphor, is that you're first human and then you're male, female, etc., and then you're an athlete and then you're a tennis player. So first you're an athlete, which means you're developed athletically all around, which means you need all these different kinds of movements. And some parents are doing it today by, giving the child different, like putting them on different sports and different like extracurricular activities, which I mean that can work also, but again, I feel like it's missing the social aspect because then they
Exactly.
actually have different friends in each of those sports. They actually have different social groups.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to then develop those friendships because you're constantly all the time going from one environment to another with a different coach. And even those activities are very structured where it's that the coach or someone is creating. So it's again like a school, where it's a very structured environment and there's not a lot of free kind of play
Yeah.
that can happen. So this idea of what used to be where kids are just, playing whatever, hockey or football or just throwing rocks in the pond or whatever it is, and just making up the climbing trees. Yeah, they're doing all these kinds of things where they're all the time. They're running, they're crawling, they're squatting down, they're climbing. They're developing the overall athletic ability, and then alongside that, sure, they can do the some sports, some specialization sport also. But I feel like kids learn so fast that for many of these first years, they don't even need to do that much of, let's say, tennis, for example, to be able to, learn it. But I think that's where we come back to the winning and losing, where like I think the biggest kind of disservice or detriment is that from a very young age there's this competitive aspect where like everybody wants to win when the kid's like 7, 8, 9 years old. Already like we want to win tournaments, and then the egos of the parents, and we come back to the
Mm,
parents like come in, and it's not even like I remember when I was young, and it's not even like I don't blame the parents because sometimes it's so easy to get hijacked by the group dynamic, because even the parents I feel like who are very can be like very nice, very like want the best for a kid, and they come into this environment to the tournament where all it's all about all the other parents are kind of like what's going on, and like are the kids winning or losing? I mean, it depends on the culture, of course. In Slovakia, I know it's more like this. I'm sure when I lived in England, for example, it was a bit different. Like in England, parents were much more relaxed.
really?
Um, not all parents, but definitely higher percentage than I see in Slovakia. So there was in England, I think culture was interesting because I think England was like the opposite. In England, it was much more almost like the parent was much more like disengaged. Like I'll just bring my kid. I'm just like a chauffeur. I'll just bring my kid to a tournament. They can play like, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
It's like the opposite where the kids were maybe missing more of that kind of feeling like the parent cares or like there for them or supports them, emotionally. They're much more disengaged. Whereas in Slovakia, what I see is like parents are too engaged emotionally. It's like
Yeah.
it's overly emotional, and it's creating too much. And none of those extremes are good, right? You don't want to be overly emotional, or you also don't want to be detached, where
Right.
the child then feels like the parent like doesn't care. Um, so I think that's what I saw more there, where it becomes too much like, yeah, it's just a hobby. But it's like it's kind of like it's just a hobby, which would be okay if it was actually just a hobby. But then it's like it's just a hobby, but also like we're going to tournaments and it's competitive, you know?
Hmm.
So it's kind of like not recognizing that there is stress on the kid. Like the kid still might experience because there is competition and they're winning or losing and there's other kids and all that. So if they are experiencing those emotions, um, the parent still needs to be there to support them and be emotionally there to experience the pain or the happiness or everything, to experience it together. Um, you don't want to, because a lot of times we can look at it like the parents are too, they need to relax. But what you don't want is what I'm just saying. That's the other extreme. So you don't want to disengage.
Right.
Um, so it depends on the culture, but that's where the parents definitely play a role in terms of like how I am with the kid at the tournaments.
Mm. Interesting. I mean, again, with the winning and losing in the interview, which I saw of Darren Cahill,
Mhm.
he said one interesting thing, and I would like to talk about with you. Uh, he said that girls or women tennis players, they are much more like focusing on winning or losing even at the practice sets or most of the time if she loses in practice all day is like destroyed and and no there's no fun and they cannot like in men's they are more like they can see the bigger picture, and okay, the practice is for improvement, and even the practice sets are okay. And if we want to build the confidence, okay, let's take it as a normal match, and we can play in practice like we would play in the tournament. But most of the time, it's just like practice for improving and to trying out things. But I mean, the question maybe is, why is it that the girls or the women, they take it more seriously?
I don't know if they take it more seriously, but it's more, I mean, this is something that it's like nowadays, especially in the Western world, right? That's such a controversial topic, right? Like the difference between men and women and all that stuff. But I think there definitely, like I can say, there definitely is, right? We're not the same. And one thing, and this is just my opinion, I think, is that what happens is there is that women, or rather, put the other way, men, a lot of men are not don't allow themselves to feel as deeply because of the social conditioning of, all this archetypal programming of, like, boys don't cry, and all these archetypal sayings where men were for many generations conditioned not to actually feel deeply. Um, so I would say that's one thing where I think women allow themselves to kind of let the feeling go deeper, whether it's, the have joy or the pain of whatever is happening, um, and stays with them longer, therefore, in a sense that it's kind of, you can think of it like this, like if men are more in their head, like more just kind of not allowing themselves to feel, and the information, the thought is faster than emotion, because emotion is like you're chemically altered, so your biochemistry has changed, so it takes a bit longer to, it's kind of like the emotion, I think, has more like a curve, like a more round curve, and the thought is more like a cutting the corner. So you can change the thought much faster than you change the emotion.
Hmm.
So the more you're in your head, the faster you can, like, change the kind of going what you're thinking, maybe, but at the same time, it's problematic. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it's better, because there's different problems where then you also can't maybe be so presently there, because you can get also like overanalyze. Like, the problem with guys, with men, is more they can get like paralysis by analysis, where they get too much stuck in their head, and then they're not free to just play. So that would be the problem with that. But if they actually have the insight or an explanation or something like more rational, then they can figure it out and change. Whereas if you're more in the emotion, you need to feel good. So it's much more about, okay, I feel confident, I feel good. Uh, the more emotional state is how am I feeling at the moment, and if I feel good, I feel good. If I don't feel good, I don't feel good. And that's what Darren Kale was. I think they're saying what you're saying, that if I win the practice match or practice sets, it makes me feel good, and I carry that feeling with me into the tournament. Like, so the women might actually have the advantage, and we see that actually a lot in women, where, like, if someone, like, if the woman's feeling good and she has confidence, it actually stays longer with her. Kind of like she can win multiple matches and kind of like uh
Hmm.
carry that, where the guys might actually be in the moment by being more present, but they can also think themselves out of a situation also, where they can get too much in their head, kind of overthinking. So I think there's definitely a difference, and I'm not trying to say that, women don't think or men don't feel. Obviously, we both have both, but I think it's more from the social conditioning that has made it more. or less okay for men to actually feel and yeah, and more okay to kind of overthink, which is
Mm.
not helpful also.
It was also interesting, like he said that if woman, if man is set and break up, it's somehow easy with the serve and everything, and like to finish the match. But in women's, that the serve is not that important, so they have to still also fight or be there. But when you're confident or something that can take longer. But I guess he was saying it that they might somehow, or I don't know, why was he saying that woman?
I think that's more technical or like that's more like a physical difference between men and women.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a mental thing. That's more the fact that men are stronger, especially in the upper body, just physically.
Hmm.
And that's why they have bigger serves. That's why the service is so much
Right,
faster, and
right,
that's why it's easier for guys to win their service game. So that's why
right.
when the guy is up a break or something, it's much easier for him to close out the set.
Yeah.
Whereas women, because they're not as strong in the upper body, the serves are a bit slower, which allows the returning player to take advantage more of the serve and break back, or that it's not that clear that just because I'm a breakup, I'm gonna
Yeah.
close out the set. That's why I think Serena is the best player, female player in the history, right? Serena Williams, because of how big her serve was.
Mm,
That
mm,
was a big thing where and we know, you know, in tennis, like serve is like the most important shot.
mm.
Um, so I think that's why. So I don't think there was a mental difference between women. There was more a physical difference. But
Exactly. And
goes back
I
to the fact that we're different, you know.
Yeah, and he was, I mean, probably he was saying it because that okay, men can little bit more relax because I mean, when he's double break up, okay, let's bring it home. And women, they cannot relax because anything can happen, and
Mhm.
yeah, they have to.
That makes sense actually, yeah. And that makes sense how the game is geared because the serve is the most important shot or one of the most important, and because of how the tennis is set up, like points wise, that you know, if you hold your serve, you're just gonna
Yeah,
get the set. And because men are more physically bigger, so actually it's easier for men in that aspect of you know, also harder because if you down a break, then you have a problem. You know, if you actually down the break, then you're more kind of stressed as a guy because it's much harder to break back. Where, you know, so we can look at it also from the other side, where like as a woman, even if you get broken the serve, you know, okay, I can still break back, or
mm,
it's the serve is, you know, so yeah. So I think he was saying it from there, like if a guy, because he was saying it from that point of view, right? If the guy is a breakup, then it's more relaxed if he's the
yeah,
coach of the guy who.
yeah. It would be also interesting to talk about a little bit how to maybe also for the young players how to sell them the idea of importance of the improvement in the practice, or the first priority of the practice is improvement and then maybe to win, and on the other side in the matches is the first is to win and then it goes with improvement also from the matches. Like it can very quickly like switch. Okay, we start the practice. Okay, we have these goals. Let's play the okay. We play one tie break. We play like this. Second, we like this. Third, like this. But something happens, and then somehow the player gets angry and wants to win badly and everything, and all of the improvement goes out of the window. And just the role of the coach to keep that perspective somehow.
Well, I think I want to like maybe if I can, I would correct you where I wouldn't even call it. We can call it improvement, I guess, but Because I think improvement implies that you're still improving so you can win. Um, or at least maybe that's not how you meant it, but it's very easy to kind of think of like, yes, okay, we're not focused on winning, we're focusing on improving. But why are we focusing on improving? Because we want to be winning. You know,
Right.
so it kind of becomes the same thing. So I would rather say that, especially with, because now we're talking about the younger kids, right? Like,
Hmm.
starting tennis, that's where you're shaping their whole viewpoint on the game. And I would say that the main priority is to get them excited about the game itself.
Hmm.
So you're not actually measuring improvement. You're not talking about now we're improving, now we're not improving. Because again, like I said, that's again the same thing as saying like now we're getting closer to winning and now we're not getting closer to winning. It's more, I would look at it as like we are now exploring this game.
Hmm.
So I think exploring is a better word than improving.
Hmm.
It's more like how much have we explored
Yeah.
is the better question than how much have we improved. And what I mean by that is exploring means that you are teaching the kid because that's your role as a coach, right? Is to teach. You're a teacher. I think that's why I think it'd be, and some countries have that when it's like a tennis teacher, not a tennis coach. Um, because especially with the younger kids, I think the tennis coach becomes more when they're older. It becomes much more also about strategy and tactics and in terms of like, okay, then it becomes much more okay, how do we win, how do we beat this specific player, and what is the strategy against this player or that player, right? That's more coaching. That's why the professional coaches are, that's much more their role. They're you know but as for small kids, you're more like a teacher. You're a tennis teacher where you're teaching the technique. You're teaching, the game. And teaching, is I think where of course also our education system plays, there was a lot of mistakes in my opinion what's been done in the education system where the teachers themselves are not doing the best job of actually teaching. Um, because it goes back to the exploration. Like, are you exploring the subject? And because I believe, like, if you're exploring, you're actually excited. You get excited about the subjects because the outcome, what you're measuring as a coach or as a teacher, your best feedback of how good you're doing your job is how excited the kid is to be there. How much are they alive on the court? And you can see that from their nervous system, how much are they present, how much or are they daydreaming, or are they like
Yeah.
want to do something else, or and they will anyway because they're kids. So that goes back to also the fact that like as the younger kids they are, the shorter attention spans they have. So you have to be much better at having many different games and many different explorations of the game from different angles. That's why I think a lot of these coaches who are for young kids coaches are so underappreciated, and it's such a shame. I see in the
Mm.
world where the ones that work with the little kids are not like valued and appreciated at all
Yeah.
because a lot
Yeah.
of people look at it like, oh, it's just a hobby. They're just playing with the kids, but that's the hardest job as the basis of like having good players later.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to do it because many people don't know how to, because many
Yeah.
people don't know how to play, and it goes to like multiple generation problem. Many people don't know
Mm.
how to play with the kids because many people don't know how to play, and many people don't know how to play because no one played with them.
Yeah.
Really. So it's a multi-generational problem that we see, and multi-generations of focusing on results.
Yeah.
And with little kids, you're not getting any results because they're not competitive, there's no results. So that's why a lot of the coaches want to work with the 13, 14, 15, 16 year olds where like they're already competing and we can compare ourselves with others and make results and all that. But a lot of people don't understand, and this is something, if some, coach is watching this, I would say like we have to really appreciate the people who work with the kids, because if you don't have them, then you don't get the 13, 14, 15-year-old. Like they have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the same thing goes for the teachers in the education system. There's a few that they can really do their job well, and I think so. So going back to its exploration, not improvement. Exploration, like, okay, what this is a ball, this is a racket. What are all the things we can do with this? And this is the court. And what are different how what are all the ways we can hit this ball with this racket?
Mm.
And you're exploring. And you can take that for a long time. You can take that forever, actually. And I believe that the best players are actually the ones that keep that childlike quality, where they constantly
Yeah.
exploring and have that curiosity of like, what are different ways I can hit this ball with this racket, and have this like simple, but like in simplicity is the beauty, as they say, the simple outlook.
Yeah.
That's because then you can create, then you can do something fun, something new.
Yeah.
And most importantly, then you stay aligned with the child, with the like what do they want to learn? What do they want to explore? Because at the end of the day, that's how you, or if we talk about improvement, that's how you improve the fastest, or that's how you learn the fastest, when you actually go with what the kid is interested in that moment. That's why I was telling you before we started recording, when I was working now with this young boy, and I asked him, the 11-year-old, and the first thing I asked him was like, okay, where are you now? And this was also already like, okay, results improvement based. But I asked him, okay, where are you now? He said, like, I'm number 3 in the country. And I'm like, what is your goal? And he says, I want to win this national championship. And I asked him, okay, what is the difference between where you are and the national championship? And he said, like, oh, like, yeah, I can't because my second serve is too weak, so they keep pressuring me. So I'm like, okay, would you like to then work on the second serve? And he's like, yeah, he's so excited. And he chose to do that because it makes sense to him,
Mm.
um, rather than me saying like, I think this is wrong. We need to change this, or we need to improve this.
Mm. Mm.
So I think that's the way, what you asked about, that's the way. How do you get the kid thinking more in the terms of improving or exploring rather than winning? It's yeah, you explore, you play more, and you make it very clear from early on that, as a coach, and you teach the parents also, or if parents are listening to this, the parents, you make sure that the highest priority is effort, not results. So the trainings and the tournaments in the young kid should look something along the lines of, we're exploring with full effort. We're
Mm.
putting full effort into exploring.
Yeah.
And that's what we're measuring effort. Did we do our best? Did we put in like all of our, and they go together, because if you're really exploring and the child is really excited, they will do full effort. Like you don't
Mm.
have to even
Yeah.
do anything about that, because if they're excited, they'll do it automatically.
Yeah. And that's how Federer comes up after 20 years of playing tennis with the saber, or with the
Yeah.
backhand. I mean, very aggressive out of the Nadal spin. So yeah, that's amazing.
Always exploring.
Yeah.
That's how you develop the love of the game, like what we talked about the other day. If you're always exploring, then again, and we repeat ourselves, but I think it's so important to say it again. Again, it's the understanding of the game. If you explore, the more you explore, the more you understand, and the more you understand, the more fun it is,
Yeah.
because the more you can create. The more you understand how it works, the more, after some time, that the kid can start developing their own patterns,
Yeah.
like, and being creative. with these elements of what they know, what they understand how it works. They don't understand how it works if someone just like implanted it into them that like, but they without the understanding of how it works, then and that's what Darren Cahill in that interview was saying, right? That there's the two types of coaches. That there's the coaches that make the player dependent on the coach because
Mm.
they just tell them what to do and they don't explain them how it works. And then it might work, but then the player is dependent. They always have to go back to the coach.
Yeah.
And then there's coaches who teach the player by also explaining. And it was lovely how he said that in the pro level, that after 3, 4 years, you have to change the coach because in about 3, 4 years, the coach actually gave everything they know to the player. And at that point, you need a fresh perspective or you usually need a fresh perspective, and then the coach can either they change and they coach someone else, or they become like a more like a mentor or someone who manages the team, and but they have to bring on a different coach to bring some new elements, some new aspects, um, some fresh look, because then they can explore a new territory, which this new person has a new fresh outlook, new fresh understanding of the game, which
Mm.
so it's like, yeah, do you wanna give the fish or do you wanna teach the fish? It's like the old saying.
Mm. It's amazing how there's also pattern of people who have the highest understanding of the game, like the Federers and the Nadals and even the Darren Cahill, and and also the father of Mike, Brian, and Brian brothers. Like even now in this interview, the beginning and the end was about the message to the players, and he said again that to enjoy as much as possible, because it's very short time where you can do the thing you love to do. So that's also like we can see in all of the people that even the players, they quit, like we spoke last time. Dominic Thiem, he said also, like, to enjoying the game, and on the one hand is the results and the stress and everything what comes with it, and on the other way is the pure love for the game, or the enjoyment. And yeah.
And I think that's beautiful what you're saying, and I think it's very what I immediately thought of. We can bring it back to the kind of what we started with, which is the parents and what is the role of the parents. And I thought of it's as cliche as that sounds, but the role of the parents is to give that unconditional love
Mm,
because it's it's why do we get hijacked by these emotions of like I want to win or I'm stressing about winning or losing and not enjoying? It's because we're comparing ourselves to other people, and we compare ourselves because, as Tony Robbins talks about, has a beautiful quote. He says the deepest fear of each of us as humans is that we are not good enough and therefore we won't be loved.
right.
Which means the best gift the parents can give the child is you are good enough and you are loved as you are as a child, no matter whether you win or lose. And only when that's there, then tennis can be quote unquote just the game. And then you can, as Nike says, you can just do it.
Mm,
And that word just is so important in there
mm,
because that just doing it brings that ease, that relaxation, that I'm just doing it. I don't have to do it. It's if the Nike slogan said do it, no one would like that.
mm,
But that just is so important in there. because it gives you that element of there's no pressure. Just do it.
And there's another Nike slogan, there's no finish line.
Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. It's just still it's like we talked about last time, right? It's a
mm,
lifestyle.
mm,
There's no finish line, and you're just enjoying the lifestyle. So Darren Cahill is so right. It's like he's so right. Just we have to enjoy. But the reason I said what I just said is that we all know that, but
mm,
it's harder than it sounds because we all have that fear of I won't be enough and therefore I won't be loved, and that's why we compare ourselves to other people to make sure we are enough. Like, am I
mm,
enough? And in sports, it's on one hand, it makes it kind of, let's say, more tangible because you have the rankings and all of that. But on the other hand, it makes it a little more even cruel or tougher because there's like a concrete, like, this is how good you are. There's
mm,
like a concrete ranking. And that's why I said the parents are there to differentiate for the fact of like, no, you are amazing. There's the unconditional love. The ranking is just there as a feedback to like for this game that you're playing, and it's just a game. You're just doing it.
right.
And then the exploration can be there, and then all of the stuff I talked about earlier can happen when there's not this pressure on improving and winning and all of that. Um, so I think that's the main role. I mean, like I said, as cliche as that sounds, that's the main role of the parents is a combination, I would say, of unconditional love, but also instilling like discipline at the young age. What I said earlier, through the effort that we want to, as Matthew McConaughey said, is don't half-ass it. That you do your best. But it's kind of, yeah, you do your best, and then you're loved when you come off the court, whether you did, so that's the role of the parent. Role of the coach, exploration of the game. That's the role of the coach. Help the kid explore what this game has to offer. And because the coach already has the know-how and the knowledge and all that, but the good coach is the one who can package the information in a way that the child actually comes up with it on their own. They can put, so you create the environment. It's like a treasure hunt, you create the environment where the treasure is going to be found by the kid, because it's so much more fun when the kid can find the treasure themselves. But as a coach, you know how to set up the environment because you know which treasure you actually want to find. So you set it up in a specific way, so they can find that and having experience that joy of like, that's so cool, like what I can do with this racket and ball and what's possible. So that's the role of the coach or the teacher, I would say, for the little kid. And then later on, the role of the coach is also it's the same. It just gets higher and higher levels of like tactically and technically and all that. The tactics just get more and more complex, but that's normal. It's the same as any other subjects. And as the kid gets older, doesn't matter if it's physics or mathematics or whatever subject it is, it's normal that with the love development, the subject gets more and more complex and more intricate, but also more interesting if you're coming at it from this point of view of exploration instead of this is something so it's goes beyond tennis. It doesn't matter if it's tennis or if it's life for somebody who has a job, just because again, they're comparing themselves with others, and I have to make a lot of money so I can feel better about myself because I make more money than someone else. It's the same exact thing as in tennis. Like, I have this ranking and I have a better ranking than somebody else.
Mm,
So this would be my message actually to parents. Is my message to parents would be like, realize that if your kid is at 12 years old thinking about like, I need to have better ranking than this other kid, like, you have to realize you're setting them up for a life where they'll be miserable, where they'll be thinking, I need to make more money than this other person, otherwise I'm not good enough.
mm.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. It was beautiful.
Cool. I think we're very good. Got like a little emotional there. Good.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks for the topic. It's a great
Mm,
topic, and I know you have your journey with your son and coaching him and guiding him, and it's such a pleasure for me that you're open to have these conversations and that you're open to learning as a coach and as a parent, and and I think it's beautiful because you can, you're a beautiful example to a lot of different coaches and parents of what is the approach that can be done because that's what's necessary. It's more examples out there of,
mm,
by example and yeah.
perfect. No, and from my side, it's always amazing to talk with people. They know what they're talking about, and also that that I can learn even though I'm much older, but I just feel like there's so much value coming, and I can always like put things together because you said it maybe different way, and or it's like if you read a book or you have to read maybe 3 4 books to learn something what you can learn in one conversation because somebody just connected the dots. So yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Have
Good.
a good evening. Bye.
Okay. Perfect. Bye.